Hello! Welcome to the Celestine Light Esoteric Mystery School. Today's lesson will be an introduction to the magical properties of crystals and minerals to give you guidelines to help you build an awesome assortment of crystals and minerals that you can use for tools. We work with a lot of magic, spells, and enchantments in Celestine Light. In those endeavors, crystals and minerals are great tools. If you want help enchanting stones and crystals that you already own, just visit my website Embrosewyn.com and click on the enchantment tab. Crystals and minerals can also be very beneficial in a myriad of ways that are totally unconnected to magic. As an example, the color, shape, or appearance of an object can all by itself invoke emotional feelings of love, peace, and serenity, or induce you to action or to think of certain types of thoughts. Very similar in the way that aromas can affect us. Because many minerals and crystals radiate a standalone energy caused by their chemical composition, color, and shape, they are frequently used by energy and light workers as standalone items without any magical properties attached. In part 1 of the magical powers of crystals and minerals, we will cover things to consider when selecting the best crystals and minerals for magical purposes. Some of the deeper aspects of use are big enough topics that we'll save them for future classes, as I couldn't cover it all in one video without it getting too long. Now, crystals and minerals are definitely one of my favorite topics. I have been fascinated with them since I was a small child. I even majored in geology in college. When I was young, I liked crystals for their beauty. As I developed my paranormal and magical abilities, I began to realize more and more that crystals and minerals had special properties that made them wonderful tools for magic and psychic purposes. The trick is to match the purpose with the crystal or mineral that will best enhance that purpose. To begin with, it's important to understand the difference between elements and minerals. There are 118 elements listed on the periodic table of elements. This chart measures all naturally occurring substances that cannot be further broken down by chemical means. We're not going to talk much about elements in this particular lesson, as they are primarily used when making potions, which will be in another lesson. One of the elements that we do use from time to time with spells and enchantments are pure copper spheres. Here's a couple samples. Now, these are very useful when they're involving any kind of magic needed to help someone to think clearly and rationally and have a stable emotional state. Now, this is a polished one and this is an unpolished one. Both of them work equally well, and the larger the copper sphere is, the more magical energy it can hold and the longer it can hold it. Now, minerals, on the other hand, are complex, well-organized, very compatible mixtures of elements. Now, they can occur massively, like this hunk of massive white quartz, or they can be crystallized or even grow into nice, big, beautiful crystals like this smoky quartz, double-terminated smoky quartz crystal. As an example of elements combining to make minerals, let's look at the metallic element sodium. Now, sodium is a very strange metal. It's actually a metal you can cut easily with a knife. And also the highly toxic element chlorine. Now, these are both very nasty elements on their own. But if you put them together in proper proportions, you get an edible, flavorful mineral that you probably eat every single day in some form or another, called salt, otherwise known as sodium chloride. Now, there's many books that you can go to the store or on the internet to buy that will tell, or at least purport to tell you, the metaphysical properties of various minerals. I'm not sure where they draw their conclusions from as to what those metaphysical properties are for each mineral, but what I'm going to share with you today concerns the properties of minerals and crystals for use in coalescing, retaining, focusing, and amplifying magical energy. So if you have any of those metaphysical books on minerals and crystals, do not use them for reference with magical things, because the properties that they attribute to the stones are very unlikely to have any connection to how we're going to be using the crystals and minerals to facilitate Celestine Light magic. There are two things to consider when contemplating using a crystal or mineral for magical purposes. Number one, what is its capacity to hold and retain magical energy? And number two, is it actually the best stone for the purpose that you're trying to achieve? Now, how much magical energy an element or mineral can hold depends upon two factors. its mass, which is basically how big and heavy it is, and its quality or purity. Elements by nature are pure, but minerals are often tightly jumbled together with other minerals, and the quality of the mineral becomes a more significant issue. For instance, let's look at quartz. Quartz is a very common mineral that comes in many forms and many colors and is familiar to most people. The element silicon combines with the element oxygen to form quartz. Low quality quartz is milky. I'm going to give you an example here. If it's a crystal, this is a piece of milky quartz crystal, and if it's a crystal and it's a low quality, it starts out by being milky, but then you'll also see it has a broken tip. So the tip is broken, and on the side, it's got one side that's very imperfect where the crystal faces didn't grow nice and straight and big. So this is a low quality piece of quartz. Even though it's a nice looking crystal, it is a low quality piece of quartz. On the other hand, here's a quartz crystal that's very nice, and you see the difference. This quartz crystal has a very sharp, clear center point. Center points are very useful. The edges of each face of the crystal are sharp, 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 and of course the crystal is very, very clear. So that's the difference between a high quality piece and a low quality piece. And the higher the quality piece is, in most instances, the better it's going to be for magical purposes. Now, quality is an issue to consider with all minerals, not just crystals. For instance, a low quality piece of rhodonite has a lot of yellowing and black. In fact, it may be all black on the outside. That's caused by other minerals and little of the intense pink color that's so desired. Whereas a high quality piece of rhodonite is going to have a lot of pink in it. I'm going to change the light here so you can see a little better. Will have a lot of pink, very, very little yellowing, and any black that's on it is actually going to act as a highlighting to the pink rather than a detriment to the pink. A rhodonite's a great stone. It's a powerful magical aid to help to deepen and expand an already existing love relationship. Now, the other aspect of capacity has to do with size of an element or mineral. Just like a big glass of water has a greater capacity to hold water than a little glass, so it's true with crystals and minerals as well. For instance, here's a big quartz crystal, and it has a greater capacity to store both a greater volume of magical energy, so the magic lasts longer, and a greater power of magical energy than a small crystal. Another good example is angel stone. Angel stone is a wonderful stone for summoning angels to help you. And a little stone, think about the bat signal. You remember Batman, he threw this bat signal up, it's like, come to help us, Batman. Well, this is, come to help us, angel, come to help me, angels. And a little angel stone is like a little flashlight. But a big angel stone is like a bigger light, calling those angels to come and help you. Wonderful stones. However, there are exceptions to bigger is better. One of those exceptions is jewelry quality rutilated quartz. Even a very small piece of optically high quality rutilated quartz is exceptionally powerful at holding and radiating enchanted energy to repel psychic attacks, hexes, and curses. It's pretty, and it makes an excellent piece of enchanted jewelry to ensure a sphere of tranquility and peace and security around you. Next, you need to consider if the stone is the best one for the purpose that you're hoping to use it for. In order to make that determination, there are several things that you need to consider. Number one, is the mineral conducive to your magical purpose based upon its chemical makeup? For instance, using a piece of fossilized barnacles composed of calcium carbonate and petrified mud would not be as useful for creating a love spell as using a piece of beautiful pink rose quartz. And as we're talking about color, pink, color is important to align with your purpose. Well, we're going to have an entire lesson on that in the near future. Color should be one of the first things that you consider when you're using a crystal for magical or mineral for magical purposes, because color emanates its own energy. If you use it with magic, you need to make sure that that color is in harmony with the purpose that you're trying to achieve magically. Now, there are some minerals that have wonderful special visual effects because of the way that the crystal was formed or the mineral was formed. And some of these are great and powerful in certain stones. Sometimes all examples of a particular mineral have that unique effect, and sometimes only rare examples of it. Now, the first one we're going to talk about is chatoyance. Chatoyant minerals are used in enchantments and spells to bring about change gently and imperceptibly over time. When a mineral has microscopic inclusions of an unrelated mineral or strands of the same mineral all lined up in parallel, it causes what is called chatoyancy. This alignment causes a single line of light play in the mineral, and it's also called the cat's eye effect. Here's a piece of turquoise fiber optic that has that cat's eye effect. There you go. There you can see it really good there. Now, this is actually a piece of fiber optic, the same stuff they make fiber optic cables out of. So it is man-made, but they take very microscopically hair-thin pieces of glass and they align them all up as parallel strands, and then it transmits the light like this. Now, this particular piece, there's not a lot of manufactured products that are actually good in magic, but cat's eye is one of those that is. Especially you get certain colors. The turquoise is a hard color to find. But if you can get this turquoise cat's eye, it's high purity quartz is what it's made out of, and it's very useful in coalescing magical energy for anyone that needs happiness, more happiness in their life. It's very useful for anyone suffering from depression. Let's look next at asterism. Asterism is caused by microscopic inclusions of another mineral, which is most often rutile, perfectly aligning at multiple orientations. You see this in stones cut with domes or spheres such as star sapphires. Besides sapphire, ruby can also have asterism, and on rare occasions so can rose quartz from Madagascar. Star stones are incredibly powerful for magical purposes. They amplify the effect of any spell or enchantment. The amount they amplify will depend upon the quality of the gemstone, the sharpness of the star, and the size of the stone. The next thing we're going to look at is sparkle. Sparkle can be seen in natural stones like aventurine that have tiny inclusions of minerals with reflective faces, such as mica. But it can also be caused by other minerals besides mica, such as this pyrite quartz crystal, pyrite phantom quartz crystal. You can see inside the quartz crystal this beautiful phantom that's made by a layer of thin layer of pyrite on top of an earlier growth of quartz inside the phantom. And we'll talk more about phantom crystals a little later. In the case of a stone like a quartz crystal phantom, using the stone in magic will combine the magical attributes of the quartz crystal with the magical properties of the pyrite. Because the two are one in the crystal, the overall magical energies are enhanced and more powerful than they would be if you use the same two stones ununited in a separate quartz crystal and a separate piece of pyrite. When using pyrite in any form, it's important to remember that the main elements that form pyrite are iron and sulfur. So it exudes the magical properties of those two elements, which is holding steadfast to purpose despite obstacles for iron, and the ability to help heal afflictions caused by obstacles for pyrite. There are also manufactured stones, such as goldstone, that have great sparkle effects from the inclusions inside the glass. Goldstone is one of the few manufactured stones that is useful in magic. This is a blue goldstone. I'm not sure if you can see the sparkles in it. Depends on how the light's reflecting on it. It's actually glass with specific minerals added for color and to create the sparkles. It's very difficult to manufacture goldstone in high quality. In an order of rarity, it comes in the colors of brown, blue, green, and red, with true red being exceptionally rare. Glass is mostly the mineral quartz, with a few other elements added to lower its melting temperature. The addition of the included sparkles adds a useful energy to many magical actions. One of the best magical purposes of blue goldstone is to stimulate astral travel and lucid dreaming. It's truly a wonderstone when it is enchanted for those purposes. Let's talk about iridescence next. Iridescent stones are great for helping to reveal that which is hidden. The mineral labradorite is useful for that purpose, especially when combined with other minerals such as ulexite or clear quartz spheres. Labradorite is especially useful for anyone beginning to develop their psychic abilities. When it is enchanted to help for that purpose, it can be truly amazing how quickly and powerfully a person begins expanding their psychic abilities. The next thing we'll look at is pearly. Pearly luster is an external appearance similar to what you'd see on a pearl. It occurs in many shells, such as this abalone shell. You can see the pearly luster all along it there. but it's also found naturally in some minerals such as celestite. Now, this is a cut celestite heart, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this or not. If you look at the crystals inside and look at their crystal faces, you see they kind of have a pearly luster to them, almost like they're coated with something rather than the normal look that you would see with crystals. Celestite is actually very well named, as it's very useful when enchanted to help make a stronger connection to the higher realms, to spirit guides and to angels. It does this in a soft, gentle, loving way that's full of joy. The next thing we're going to look at is whether the stone is natural or altered by humans. You need to consider whether the mineral crystal that you're using or thinking about using is a more powerful tool in its natural state, the way it came out of the ground, or in an altered state where it's been cut, reshaped, and often polished by people. In almost all instances involving crystals, a high-quality crystal in its natural state will always be a better choice than one that has been cut, polished, or altered other than cleaning. But there are exceptions, which we'll talk about in a separate lesson on crystals. Crystals have flow lines that move the energy through them in a way that is most harmonious, because that's the way they grew in nature, along the path of least resistance. These harmony lines flow both internally and along the external surface of crystals. On the other hand, if the stone was originally a massive piece and not a crystal, it is most often enhanced by fabricating it into a shape. Next thing we'll look at is it natural, created, or altered? There are 4 types of stones you are likely to encounter as you build your collection of power tools from the world of gems and minerals. Imitation. These are fake stones, rocks, or crystals. For instance, a rhinestone, even if it's made of beautiful Swarovski cut crystal, is just that, a piece of cut crystal, not natural crystal, man-made crystal. If they are chemically a different substance than the natural stone that they're imitating, they are 100% worthless for magical purposes. The worst offender for this is turquoise. It's estimated in the jewelry industry that 90% of all turquoise sold is fake. Most of it is a white mineral called howlite that is dyed a turquoise color. And dyeing, that's another big one you need to look out for. There are a lot of dyed rocks out there for sale. Any dyed rock has been totally destroyed for magical purposes. This is commonly done with agates and with lapis lazuli. If you see a rock in a color that does not occur naturally, don't buy that rock for use in magic, no matter how pretty it is. If you see a rock that's in a natural color but very, very intense in that color, it's probably a fake. Molecular bonding. This is another tricky one. Aqua aura is the best example of molecular bonding. 24 karat gold is merged with the surface of the quartz crystal by vapor deposition of the gold in a vacuum chamber at 1600 degrees Fahrenheit. It literally becomes part of the crystal. It is not a coating that can be removed. Because of the bonding at the molecular level between the gold and the quartz, this becomes a powerful magic tool as it provides the benefits of both gold and quartz. However, there can be a problem. The original process was created by a friend of a friend in Washington State. In the 80s, I actually loaded up my van with 50 flats of aqua aura, planning to drive across the country introducing it for the very first time to New Age stores. I only made it halfway across the US before I sold out. Everyone loved aqua aura. Subsequently, the inventor started experimenting with other elements such as platinum and achieving entirely new and different colors. But it was only a few years before the process was being imitated in Asia and cheaper imports started showing up in stores. The colors were most often even more intense than the original process. Some were even gaudy. They were pretty, but energetically their process differs from the original, and it often kills the energy of the stones for magical purposes. Here's how to test. If the process is enhancing rather than diminishing the magical potential, the color, luster, or sparkle effect will be molecularly bonded to the stone. This means you will not be able to scrape it off even with the blade of a knife. And I have here an aqua aura crystal and a knife. And you can see as I scrape that crystal, it has no effect on the aqua aura crystal. The 24 karat gold is molecularly bonded to the quartz. It is physically part of the quartz now. And gold being very soft, Normally if you scrape with a knife, gold would come off. But because it's molecularly bonded, it is now part of the quartz, it doesn't come off. The other test is simply visual. If the color coating appears heavily on the crystal, so it actually looks like a coating and not just the natural color of the stone, then it has little use for magical purposes. Now, of course, talking about natural, we look at natural crystals and minerals. Natural means that other than cleaning, these are unaltered stones as far as their appearance and chemical composition from the way they came out of the ground. They may be cut into different shapes, but the basic stone is unaltered in chemical composition or color. Now, there is a way you can enhance the color by unnatural means, but that does not necessarily affect the magical properties. There are also stones that are natural in every way, but they have had their colors enhanced by either temperature or irradiation. Some of these are diminished by the color enhancement, some are actually better magically than the original natural stone, and some are the same energetically. Many of the stones you buy in a store or online are altered in some way to enhance their color. Heat and radiation are the two most common and are often used to create darker, more vibrant colors. Over 80% of the crystals and minerals that you see in most stores or online have had color enhancement of one type or another. Now, rocks that have been irradiated or heat treated can be good or bad, but most work very fine for magic. You will need to test them individually to feel their energy to determine whether their beneficial flow has been disrupted by their color enhancement. To do this, you just take a rock, hold it in your left hand with the palm up and your arm extended. Have someone fairly strong push down on your other hand while you're trying to push up. If the rock is good for the conduction of energy, you will feel strong in your resistance and may even be able to push up more against the other person than they can push down, which of course is already more difficult because pushing down they have both gravity and the weight of their arm to their advantage. The reason these types of rocks are often okay is their original crystal structure and chemical composition remain perfectly intact. The heating or irradiation altering that was done artificially is just mimicking processes that could occur naturally. Now let's look at natural but polished. This can be anything from a tumbled polished stone to a natural crystal that has had its surfaces sanded and polished. Tumbled stones are always fine, and they're great for healing and light work, especially if they're enchanted. They can be placed upon specific spots on the body of a patient, laying down, and are very useful in the healing process, including physical, mental, and emotional healing based upon their specific energy and enchantment. Crystals should always be left in their natural state if they are a high quality crystal inside and out, as this preserves their optimum natural energy flow lines. Sometimes, however, you'll find crystals that are perfectly clear and beautiful on the inside, but opaque on the outside. If the inside has something special in it, such as a great phantom, in these cases there is a benefit from lightly sanding and polishing the outside surface to reveal the full beauty of the inside. Back in the 80s in Washington State, I discovered a large bug on a mountain filled with thousands of quartz crystals. Every single crystal had a perfect 6-point phantom inside optically clear quartz. Sadly, almost everyone also had an obscured surface, so it was very difficult to see and appreciate the amazing phantom inside. Many of these benefited, for both beauty and magical purposes, from having their obscure surfaces polished to clarity. I'll show you one later in the lesson. Here's the example of one of the few crystals from the bug that didn't need to be polished. This is a completely natural crystal, and inside you can see that gorgeous, beautiful, 6-sided phantom. All 6 sides perfectly clear. We'll cover the magical uses of phantoms in a future lesson on crystals, as there are many different minerals that can be causing the phantom, and the best use of the crystal will depend upon what mineral is creating the phantom. Next, let's look at synthetic stones. A synthetic stone is chemically the same as a natural stone and most often has the same crystal structure as well. They are just grown under controlled conditions in a laboratory. They are just as excellent for magic work as natural stones. Often, they're even better. The controlled growing conditions allow them to have perfect crystal structure, like this piece of precious opal. That was laboratory grown and has great color play. When enchanted, opals excel at amplifying offensive magic, especially original spells and enchantments for active, custom purposes to manifest. star sapphires and star rubies are also very commonly grown in the laboratory. Well, that's all for this lesson. Thanks for watching. More great info and details will be coming in subsequent lessons to help you become a magical adept. If you already have some of the minerals and crystals that I talked about in this video and you would like them enchanted to help you, you can send them to me to be enchanted. I do all requested enchantments in a circle of power of at least 3 Celestine Light Adepts. Just go to my website, Embrosewyn.com, and click on the Enchantments tab to find out how to take advantage of this service. Please subscribe to my channel to get notified when new lessons are posted, and please like my video. Namaste, my brothers and sisters.